55 days until Christmas, but first, this is the week that was with me, your host, Simon Brown, and we have a full bench this week. FNB Wealth and Investments, Chantal, Marx, Sasfins, David Shapiro, Vestacts, Khumalo. Lady, gentlemen, welcome. Why did the markets choose violence last night?
Because we're suffering from pre-Trump stress disorder.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
Make me even more
So,
stressed.
yeah, that's why. Because I can't find fault with the results that have come out. I think you really got to be backwards. When you go through the absolute results that have come out from the tech companies, please God, we have any kind of company like that in South Africa that can manage those kind of cash flows or show those kind of earnings. So I just think it's people are tired, bored with this whole thing and want it over. But I think that's why we had the violence.
And Supermicro's obviously
Yeah, Supermicro doing a Steinhoff on us.
it's making all it's making the market participants feel a little queasy. They're like, if Supermicro is doing this, who else is doing this?
Yeah, and then I think the last thing probably is that these tech companies have done very well over the last few years, and year to date also very, very well. So I think it's normal that there's a little bit of volatility around earnings. So going into earnings as well as post earnings. And one of the themes that are standing out at the moment is the AI theme, all the investment and capex that's going into it. And now I think investors are also like, oh, but when are the returns coming? When are the AI returns coming? Yeah, the other returns are great, but we're bored.
We've seen them on Meta only, to be honest. Maybe an Nvidia.
Yeah, surely we just buy Nvidia.
It's Nvidia and Meta that have actually shown AI returns. I'm still like, Microsoft, come on, guys.
They've got to build the infrastructure first. You can't get returns without building the factories or whatever it is.
Did you hear the numbers from, what do you call this, the Microsoft AI thing? What is it called?
Azure.
Open AI.
Open AI.
So, no, not Copilot, but Open AI themselves. They're saying they're starting to see subscriptions slowly going up and accelerating to a pace where they're kind of happy for, from people
If my
like
$20 is what's going to make them rich, they're a long way away.
Well, that's the problem, because then they're already competing with 500 million users of Llama, which also they're subscribing. So that's a losing game. I'm sorry. You need something to
much deeper than that.
No, at the end of the day, it's money.
we take
You've got to shout,
You've
yeah.
got to shout, that.
So I think that the point is, right, it's going to take a long time to get a return if you are ever going to get a return. And that is where the volatility comes from. And that is why there's so much uncertainty. But I think long term, there's still an investment case. You just have to choose where. And what I really like at the moment is data center, because the AI applications themselves, I think it's going to be a mug's game ultimately if you're going a subscription model route. $20. But the cloud capacity that's going to be required to actually store that data, that's, I think, where the real money is going to be made.
The shovels. Also making news this week, the Orange One drove around in circles in a garbage truck. If aliens ever do find us, they're going to go right on past without stopping. The rainfall in Spain really fell. Khumalo Rabada is the world's best bowler, but we knew that already. Eli Lilly reports softer sales. Say what? Supermicro loses a third of their value after the auditors quit. We've seen that story before. Renogen in the Dwang with Patrice Motsepe's Solar Group, Pick and Pay horror show. And then ShopRite sticks a knife in a day later with a superb update. Gold, new all-time highs as it briefly traded above 2,800, and 8 battle share ETFs coming to market to destroy your wallet. But first, the mid-term budget policy statement brought us all back to earth. Yes, we have had 220 days of electricity, a functioning government of national unity, but we don't have money and the debt pile is growing. Here's Nikki Weimer from Chief Economist, Nedbank, dishing the dirt.
I think it just reflects the fact that there are hopeful signs. There are definitely green shoots for the South African economy, but it is still a very fragile economy. It is still very weak. And the recovery, although it's coming, is still very timid and in its early stages. So the momentum is just not there to have lifted tax revenue substantially. And I think that's the one part of the story. And of course, the bigger part of the story here is I think that ultimately, unless we actually get to a point where we can lift the supply constraints on the economy, start to grow faster, start to create more employment.
Chantal, that's just it. I mean, there is a good news story for SA, but unfortunately not so much at the bank account side of the equation. And that's going to take more time, a lot more time.
Yeah, the bank account side of the equation will lag for quite some time, right? You actually need those tax receipts to start picking up. You need interest rates to come down. You need flows to come into South Africa that pushes down our bond yields so that it's cheaper to borrow for us. A lot of stuff has to happen. I think we're really only at the start of what could be a great period for South Africa. But yeah, it's going to take a while for that budget to look a lot better, and I think Treasury admitted as much.
Yeah, I'm running out of time, you know that.
Where are you on the, because we saw the guys at 361 after the small budget came out. They're saying basically Lesetja Kganyago and his team are also, standing in between us and growth. Where do you stand on that argument?
It's difficult because lower inflation is a good thing. It is a pro-poor policy to put in place, but you will take pain. There will be a few years where growth will be under pressure because of that, because interest rates will be much higher than what we are used to. So that really nice tailwind, that really nice cyclical tailwind won't be as pronounced. But you have to do it at some point if you want to do it.
I take the point. I mean, the US did it in the 80s, right? And no one liked it, except everyone loves it now when they're complaining about, high 2% inflations.
I think where maybe 361 are is that when you're running a business and you're still paying 11% on overdraft, you can't survive.
Yeah.
You can't, regardless of inflation, whatever it is. If that's what you're paying in loan, no one can survive.
And even if you're
we
business
need
and
growth.
You borrow at 10.
So there's got to be a balance somewhere along the line.
I think one thing that we also need to take into consideration is we don't want to necessarily take away from the competitive of South Africa as a place of as a capital destination, and very low inflation. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily.
You're thinking about fund flows, the fund flows argument.
Yes.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot, but they're going to win big in the interim if interest rate does go above 20%. So they do win in the interim, but if they're here to stay, maybe they're here to stay, but if they're only here for high interest rates, then we don't need them.
Yeah, that is...
We'll take them in the meantime. Anyway, next week, we finally have the US election with the orange one already getting all shouty about fraud. Why didn't the African Union send election monitors, we wonder? And speaking of African elections, Botswana just showed how it's done as the ruling party loses power after being there since 1966 and quietly steps aside. David, you were in the US. It's going to get messy.
It is very messy.
It's already messy.
No. And it's two distinct sides, both going at each other. The hate is quite impalpable. And it's a worry because the vote's going to be decided by 0.5% or a few points of that, and yet the winner takes all.
College,
and
exactly.
I think there are a lot of concerns about what Trump will do. He's a very vengeful person, and he's bent on making those who made him suffer even more.
No, but here's the good news, right? He used to be on Twitter and he used to tweet all of these things that moved market. Now he's on Truth Social, which no one is there. So it won't have as much impact. I understand what you're saying, but the impact, the value. Remember when he was on Twitter? He used to move Twitter.
He's on Twitter.
He's on Twitter. He's just tweeting. He's kind of lost.
It's not the same. He doesn't have the vavavoom anymore.
He's probably not tweeting for himself anymore.
Yeah.
He's got a guy for that.
No, we had at some point there was someone who was taking screenshots on Truth Social, what he's saying there, and posting them on Twitter. I think now what he's doing is copy paste.
Yeah.
So there's actually a rule. If you post it, it's going to be messy. We'll find out. We won't even know next week. Competition Commission has had a busy week as it finally nixed the Vodacom Vumatel Dark Fiber Africa deal 3 years after it was proposed. And they also said nope to the Sun International Piedmont deal. Here's Head of Mergers on concentration in the casino market.
This is an already concentrated market. Basically, most of the licenses prior to the merger were shared between 3 groups. And if the merger goes ahead, 92% of the licenses will be shared by Sun and then enhanced, shall I say, Sun International. So we were concerned that what this does, particularly in central Gauteng, is remove the constraint from Piedmont and particularly from the iconic Emperor's Palace to the Soho casinos, Monte Casino, as well as Sun International's Times Square and Carnival City.
We're talking about small assets here. Just let them combine, let them lose money together.
The argument,
Jesus, man.
And the argument that Vumatel will go and do stuff and help the poor, why haven't they in the last 30 years? Chantal, I know everyone says it's overreach. I got to say, I'm thinking, I don't want oligoths in my economy.
No, Vumatel, I get you, but Vumatel, remember, is young. They're not older than whatever. It's Vodacom, the issue. Why haven't Vodacom actually cared about the poor?
So I actually think it's a good thing for that fiber business to be separate from Vodacom.
Yeah, okay.
And you actually, I think in that way, you are removing the oligopoly from the story because, I mean, yeah, Vodacom will own a portion of that, but that will essentially be a business on its own. CIVH, I don't actually think can survive much longer without something like this because they are heavily indebted. I'd want to actually read that ruling because they say that the interventions offered or the countermeasures offered wasn't good enough. But like the argument for it.
I think you are looking at it from a capitalist perspective. You should put on your commie hat and look at it from that
So let me put on my commie hat.
Exactly.
Right? There are some guys rolling out fiber in low-income areas.
Yeah.
Yes. They're not doing it at scale and past every single household.
And it's very expensive currently. Yes.
It's very expensive as well. So you are going to force those guys out, but why not just bring them in?
I'm on the commie side.
Okay. I need to.
Who are these guys? Every day I'm with you guys, and now today you're commies.
You
need money, you need towers to get this, and the cheaper we can do it, the better.
But that's the capitalist argument. That's not what she's saying. That's what I'm trying to say. So you're in the capitalist
I don't care
side.
about Piermont. Gambling is not my thing, and I don't care who owns all the casinos.
Okay, before the break, ANC renewal. We've heard this before, and probably before, and even before. But it's here again. Here's David Williams, editor-at-large Financial Mail, on whether the environment within the ruling party really has changed.
This NEC meeting that happened over the last weekend, that focused on renewal and reform explicitly, which is perhaps the first time they've put it at the top of the agenda. And of course, it's because the electoral support has dropped to around 40%, losing power in several places, and worried about the 2026 municipal elections, where if the trend continues, the ANC will lose control of major metros like Johannesburg, eThekwini.
He's not wrong, but I got to say, ANC renewal. I mean, didn't we have that in 17 with Ramaphosa? Didn't we have it with Zuma initially in 09?
They love to do PowerPoint presentations and never deliver. So we're just going to get another PowerPoint presentation that means absolutely nothing.
And then we vote in 26.
I think that there is an argument to be made that a certain faction of the ANC are no longer in the ANC. And I do think we just need
temporarily.
And I actually take that point because now we have big breakaway parties, MK and EFF. EFF, there are some very interesting dynamics at the moment, and I can see that there could be in 20 years' time.
Back. Well, Zuma's in court today to overturn his expulsion from the ANC because he wants to belong to both parties. After the break, beer sales are down and Shoprite has no problem knifing a competitor when they're down.